Hello, everybody. Welcome here. I am lucky enough to sit down with the boys varsity coach of the crew team. We have Coach Andy O'Brien joining me today. Coach, how are you doing?
I'm doing great today.
And once again, thank you so much for joining me this afternoon for this quick interview. We're going to learn a lot more about the sport of crew today. But without further ado, we'll jump right into these questions. We'll start off with this first one. What is a regular week of crew like during a regular season? And then how has that been altered with the COVID-19 pandemic taking place over this past year?
We did sweeps rowing, and sweeps. We mostly did bigger boats, an 8-person shell with one coxswain steering the boat, and we did some fours as well. And Spy Pond is not the biggest body of water, so we would go out about 4 days a week on the water, and we would have one a land day. And the pond is a beehive of activities because we have boys and girls crew, and then we have novice and we have varsity crew. So very busy, very crowded. And during COVID, we switched to sculling. So we're in a 1-person shell, 2 oars, a single that's called. And we're also doing doubles. 2-person boat, but each person has 2 oars. And so a lot of the kids had not sculled in the past. So we had to teach people from scratch, a lot of experienced oars people, how to scull. And then the other thing was we had to buy equipment fast. We didn't have the equipment, and we're not a big budget team by any means. And so we had to buy new equipment. In the fall, we didn't have any competitions. We didn't think we'd have any competitions. Hopefully in the spring, we'll definitely get a competition going, but we won't be doing any sweeps rowing in the larger boats. Again, we'll be out in singles and doubles.
Yeah, definitely. It seems like there's a very extensive plan that goes into crewing on a weekly basis. It seems like a very set routine that you have. And obviously with COVID, that's been altered a little bit, but you still have a grasp on what you've been doing so far this past season. But how did you get involved and get into crew in the first place?
I played basketball, and it was actually, I think it was the coach of UPenn was just randomly calling high school saying, do you have a tall, smart athlete? We really like basketball players. And I wasn't recruited for college basketball. And I wasn't recruited to University of Pennsylvania, but I did go to Holy Cross. They had a crew team. And so one day I just said, I was at school, the team had already started, but it had only been a week and I was kind of bored. And I said, I'm going to walk down to the lake, see if they need a rower. And that day they happened to need a rower that day, and they put me in a boat. I'm pretty good at generating a lot of power. They like that, even though my form wasn't so hot. And that's it. I've rowed every single year of my life since 1979. Never took a year off.
That's incredible. Now that you've done it for all these years, what have you really realized that you love so much about the sport?
Back in the day, there were not many opportunities to play a lot of sports. Lacrosse was relatively new. That was coming in. In the East Coast, we didn't have volleyball at the time. So there weren't a lot of opportunities beyond baseball, hockey, football, basketball, and soccer. Rowing was one of those sports that everyone pretty much started in college. I was so excited. Hey, this is a sport I can do. I really like doing sports, being active. And so that's probably the main thing that drew me in. I injured my knee skiing, and then some other injuries come up, but I can still row. So rowing is one of these sports that I would say most people can do well into their 80s. I've even seen someone in their 90s rowing. Right now I'm 60 years old, and I don't see myself stopping anytime soon. So.
Yeah, definitely. Then moving back to kind of your role as a coach on the crew team. In a sport like crew, coaches have to coach a lot differently than like coaches in other sports, like you kind of said before. But what exactly goes into being a crew coach?
So I only got into this game probably about 3 years ago, despite rowing all my life. Yeah, rowing is a tough sport because there's a rhythm. There's a rhythm to the stroke. There's a style you definitely want people to follow. But everyone's built a little differently. So, the athlete needs to get into a flow state. They need to get into a rhythm. That's equally as important as the mechanics of good form. So a lot of times I have to shut up. And also you're in a launch with a noisy motor. The exchange is not the best all the time between coaches and athletes. So this is where the coxswain comes in. The coxswain not only steers the boat, but the coxswain is also doing a lot of the coaching and race strategy as well. So I'm an outside observer. I speak to the athletes maybe before and after, more on a practice or through email or whatever. But I'll leave a lot of the coaching to the coxswain because they're in the boat. They can actually see things that I can't see. They can experience things that I can't experience because I'm not in the boat. As an outside observer, I get a lot of views that they don't get, but they get a lot of views that I don't get.
Yeah, definitely. And you were talking about the head of the Charles before.
Yeah.
Obviously, you were the coach of the head of the Charles team for Arlington, the Arlington and Belmont squad that you now coach. And for anybody who doesn't already know, the head of the Charles is a worldwide race that takes place right here in Massachusetts. So do you have any stories behind that? Kind of any stories that you participated in at the head of the Charles? And what was it kind of like being able to participate in something that big that takes place on a worldwide scale?
Well, so there's a lot of prestige that goes into the head of the Charles. It's the highlight of many of rowing athletes' career. I've been in so many that I don't quite look at it that way. The head of the Charles is an interesting race. It's a windy course, snake-like, and the Charles River is not a very wide river. You've got a lot of teams rowing. You've got to go through narrow bridges with narrow arches.
One last question for you here today. Before you kind of elaborated, this year, we're only going to be having singles and doubles for the spring season. And regattas are kind of up in the air right now. So if there are no regattas, what do you hope to accomplish this year with the crew team?
I want to see the kids race. I'm competitive. I want to be realistic about it. So they only get to row 3 days a week for 1 hour. Will that get you in a peak rowing position? It'll get you close. And with some land training, you'll have fitness-wise, you'll be there, but you're probably not in a position to be in peak condition, peak rowing form. You just got to race. We're in it. We're in it for racing, but we're also in it for exercise, our health, our mind, camaraderie. The opinion I got was it was a great break from COVID. Learning a new skill, being outdoors, being in the sun, being on the water, just breathing fresh air, breathing hard and fresh air, was really very helpful. And we'll see how spring is. Hopefully we can get a race in. We don't have anything planned for the season, but maybe we'll find another team that has similar style boats and we'll race.
Yeah, definitely. And unfortunately, that was my last question there. So once again, a very big thanks to you, Coach, for joining me here today and educating everybody on the sport of crew. And it already seems like a very interesting sport as well. And we hope that people out there will get to learn a little bit more about it in the future and possibly join if you'd like. So once again, thank you to you once again for joining me here today. If you haven't already, you can join me here on ACMi Sports. We'll be having a news story covered later this week. If you haven't already checked it out, you can go check it out on ACMi News, covering the entire crew session, as well as we have an interview with the boys varsity captains and the coxswain of that squad that participated in the head of the Charles race a couple of years back. And once again, Coach, thank you for joining me here today, and obviously have a great rest of your afternoon.
You too. Take care.
If you want to get involved in the fascinating sport of crew, contact the team with the information shown on screen. From ACMi News, my name is Nick Antonakis.